What's up, everybody? Jeff with the recovery here with the new Matt Clark, guys. If you ain't sub to him, go check him out. So, Matt, I wanted to redo this interview because we weren't able to do video the first time. Why don't you tell everybody how it started off for you as far as getting into drugs and ending up in prison?
Well, I started getting in trouble before I got into drugs. I started getting in trouble when I was 14, 15 years old. I was breaking into cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I got into chemical drugs when I was about 17, 18. I started with ecstasy, moved on to cocaine. And I think it was 2007, penitentiary, Joyceville, was the first time I tried heroin. I never really got deep into it. But when I got out December 30th, 2008, and I'd gotten into pills a little bit, and I'd steadily, progressively gotten worse. I was in a codependent relationship, and eventually it led to full-blown heroin addiction. So 17 years federal, 3 fed sentence. Well, 17 years total, 3 federal sentences, 10 years heroin addiction, 20 years addiction total. And I'm 2 weeks away from finishing my parole, successfully completed.
Awesome.
You know what I'm saying? Passed all your analysis, got through all of that crap. And I'm a free man in 2 weeks. Totally free, man. Totally free.
Awesome. That's awesome. So you said the first time you used heroin was on the inside.
Yeah.
Man, that's so I mean, of course it's pretty rampant, all prisons there's a way to get it in. I guess why don't we touch on what the prison system was like up there, your first bid, how was it like? Do you think it benefited you your first bid, or do you think it just made you a worse criminal?
Like first bid federally, or first bid like as a young offender, or I don't think there was any benefit until my last bit, and I think that was the first time I really got offered the chance to go to rehabilitation. I was able to earn parole, and they accepted it, so I could go to this rehabilitation, and I was able to successfully complete it before I came home. So that made the progress a lot better,
Yeah. That's the reason I asked, is because a lot of times, we'll go in there, especially when you're young and your first bid, and you almost, become a worse criminal. I know myself, my first bid, it just kind of taught me a lot more things I could do. I guess your last bid, you say they offered you treatment. So you got to go through some type of drug treatment or rehabilitation?
The thing is, I wouldn't really say that they offered it. I was able to earn it. You know what I mean? But I had to find the program. I had to put in all the work. They didn't lay it out for me. So, and what was the question again? Say it again.
No, I was just asking, did they give you, so you were able to get yourself into some type of rehabilitation program, correct?
Yeah. So it's called Stonehenge Therapeutic Community Center, and it's a CBT-based program. So it's more based on the traumas and the issues that you have that lead to the consequence of drug use.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's one thing, is breaking down the thinking we have, because for a long time, I know we give ourselves excuses to do what we do.
Oh, for sure.
What was the big difference for you? You're got out this time, you're having some success. What would you say that the difference is this time?
I think it was just being tired of it, honestly, just it running its course, And I think Suboxone is a huge part of it, no doubt about it. Because it gave me the ability to stop worrying and obsessing on partying and drug use and how I'm going to get out and get effed up. It literally, as soon as I got on the Suboxone, my attitude for all that stuff was changed immediately.
Yeah.
So I would say that too.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because people have their opinions on Suboxone and maintenance. And for me, like you said, it gave you a chance to actually work on your life. You know what I mean? As opposed to always having to chase just getting well. You know, so that was one of the biggest things.
Well, because the addiction is the consequence, right? Like you can't just stop using drugs and expect to be better. There's a whole recovery process. So you have to figure out what the core issues are that lead to the drug use. And until you have the time to do that, which most people don't, right? They work, they have jobs, they have kids. They don't have time where they can go sit down somewhere for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. I had the ability to do that, and I benefited from it.
Yeah, yeah. And well, that's one reason I think Suboxone's so good is it gives people who don't have the chance, like you said, to go through treatment, it gives them somewhat of a chance to live a normal life if used correctly. And that's one of the main things I want to say is, maintenance is a great form of treatment if people do it correctly,
For sure. And I smoke weed. Like we've had this conversation. I eat edibles. To me, they are also like harm reduction because I'm somebody who has that need. Okay. I feel a desire at times to feel intoxicated. That's, as an addict, that's who I am.
Yeah.
So I feel like with weed, I'm able to kind of feed that need without it getting out of control.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm not somebody that smoking weed leads to using other drugs.
Yeah.
And I understand for some people that can be a problem, but I'm not that person. So.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I always tell people I would much, I'm an advocate. If you could just smoke weed or eat edibles and that works for you, I think that's great. There's no harm. There's no chance of ODing. And like you said, you were honest. You said there's times you want to feel intoxicated. And as addicts, we do want that escape, and
I'd be lying if I said that anything different. I chased drugs for 20 years. So obviously I have that need inside me. I have that desire, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that by smoking weed, it's like, it's not a substitute, and that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that it helps, it allows me to feel like I haven't totally, turned my life into some square John robot life that I don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
for me personally, it works, right? But like we both know, it's not the case for everybody, right? It's somebody like I'm an advocate of, hey, if you can drink beer, all the power to you. If you can smoke weed, if that's what you need to do, if you need methadone, if you need Suboxone, if you can manage in recovery, because I'm a full proponent of you can be in recovery and not be sober, but you could be in sobriety and not be in recovery. You know what I mean? I totally believe that.
That is so genius what you just said. And I'm so glad you say you got some wisdom to you, Matt. Because it's factual. There's people who are stone cold sober and they might be in the rooms even and doing meetings and stuff, but they're not really in recovery. You know what I mean? Like they're
addicted to the rooms.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people they'll cut other people's recovery down to build themselves up. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Like you said, everyone's got to find their path and what's going to work for them in their life. And I'm so glad you touched on the topic of the marijuana because I believe it definitely can be used for harm reduction. It can be used to treat stuff like anxiety. And like we talked about, the addiction is the underlying issue of us, whatever we're not dealing with or, whatever issue that we had that started it, I believe we got to keep people alive long enough for them to be able to find that, and but whether it be methadone or Suboxone, whatever treatment works, when people's dropping dead at the rate they are, I think people should support anyone trying to get better from addiction. You know what I mean?
It doesn't matter what they're doing. If they're safe, all that matters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, there are some people that it's a reality are not going to be able to change their life. They're just not. And the addiction eventually is going to kill them. Right?
Yeah.
But if you can put them in an environment where at least their use is safe, and this is why I believe in decriminalization and safe injection sites, at least this way it's safe. And diseases aren't spread as much, because you can never get it totally, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's way less death, right? So harm reduction.
Well, decriminalization, I'm glad you touched on that, man. The thing is we need to treat it as a disease because addiction is a disease. It runs hand in hand with mental illnesses, So,
yeah, for sure.
The whole treating it as a crime has not worked. You know what I mean? It has just built up a prison system that, it just keeps growing. It's overpopulated because of people that are just drug addicts, who's never got a chance at treatment and warehousing
and weed charges and stuff like that. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. And you're just warehousing people, there
business, right?
Yeah, there's some programs in like this, Ohio where I'm at, there's some prison programs you can get into, but you're talking about Ohio has 45 prisons, I believe. The average amount.
How many?
There's about 45. You could look. Yeah, I know there's over 30 prisons in Ohio. I know there's
I don't even think there's 40 in our whole country.
Yeah, see, well, that's.
I mean, federal. If you go federal and provincial, then you'll have that many. But geez, that's a lot of prisons, man.
Yeah, no, and then you're talking about 2,000 people for each compound. At least the ones I was on. So, you got a program in a state like Ohio where there's only a couple programs and they only have 100 guys. So you're talking about, 40,000 guys. And out of that, 40,000 people in Ohio in prison, or whatever the number may be, maybe 200-300 a year get to go through some type of rehabilitation.
And those 200 or 300 have to have perfect behavior, which is not a reality.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's things that happen in prison that create obstacles that you can't avoid, right? And is it fair to chop somebody down, take their opportunity away for something like that? Because you don't know, like you can't always say why a fight happens. You can't always say why there's violence. Sometimes people are protecting themselves and you could lose your opportunity at a rehabilitation program for something like a fight or a dirty piss test, which to me makes no sense. It's like the treatment center I was in, the biggest no-no was you can't get caught with drugs. But there was people that were getting caught stealing there, all kinds of things, which are actually criminal offenses, and they would baby them and help them and get them back into the program. But if you got caught with dope, it was a hard no. And this guy had weed, he had smoked a joint, and he admitted it the next day, and they kicked him out of the program, and he ended up dying from an overdose, like within a couple weeks. And these are the kind of things that happen in these government-run rehabilitation programs, federal prison places that feed federal inmates, because as soon as they start accepting federal inmates, their whole program becomes about that, because that's where the money comes from. That's where their bread comes from. So, for me, it was great because I was at that point, I was fed up and I was ready to totally change. But that's not a reality for everybody, right? And if you don't allow people to make mistakes and learn without tearing them down and taking it's like a guy who gets out, he works for a year on parole, he has a job, he has an apartment, he has all this stuff, he smokes a joint, you throw him back in jail, he loses all of that, he loses his job. Because of that joint, you have now made him actually more of a danger to society.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It makes zero sense. It's this hamster wheel, right?
Yeah. And that's why I think, like people like you, and people having a platform to share that they have changed their life. They've been able to have success and to speak out like, hey, this is a revolving door. It definitely, we got to keep pushing to decriminalize it, in your country and my country, because it's not fixing the problem. You know what I mean?
But my country, you're not going to get killed for possession of dope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're a user and you get caught with like a little half gram of coke or a little half gram of heroin, you might get a little bit of time, but you're not going to get destroyed. Well, maybe the heroin you might.
Yeah. Well,
But,
and that's the thing is nowadays there's so many people addicted to harder drugs, and in the States, you get caught with a Percocet, it's a felony. You know what I mean? It's a low class felony, but it's a felony. And then you got to carry that mark on you the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think somebody was actually telling me that there's a heroin program opening up in Vancouver somewhere. If I can get more information on it, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah,
I think it's somewhere where you can actually go and get a couple doses of heroin a day, like safe, clean doses, under a nurse's watch.
I heard something about that, and
they do that in Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, and look at the crime rates in Switzerland since they've actually decriminalized, drug stuff, and the crime rate is way down.
Well, in Switzerland, they actually legalized.
Really?
They didn't just decriminalize. They legalized, and then the government started providing heroin for their citizens. So if you were addicted, they would give you heroin twice a day, as much as you wanted, in a clean, safe environment at no cost. And the whole time, rather than tearing you down, they're uplifting you and trying to make you feel good about yourself as a citizen. They came together as a community, and now their number of addicts are down, their crime rate is down, so many more. They thought that this program was just going to become a feeding frenzy for junkies, but it actually had the total opposite effect, because people were able to feel good about themselves and have purpose, and that's what we need, right? The thing is, when you're using drugs, you're using it to cover up feelings. That's why. And if you don't have any feelings to cover up because you feel good about your life, then there's no need to use the drug. You understand?
Yeah. No, and that's I'm so glad you said that, because you hit the nail on the head. Once you start, for me, that was exactly where the change happened. Is I started to have something to lose. You know what I mean? And it built.
Yeah. Well, you got kids. Yeah.
So, well, man, I appreciate you coming on. I got to get out here and get dinner ready for my little one. But
yeah, man. Happy New Year to all of your subscribers. Happy New Year's to anybody from my channel who came over to watch. I'm going to put a message up. Don't worry. I'll try to send some people over. I'm going to do a video tomorrow.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me on your channel. I appreciate every time we talk. You're a good dude. I appreciate your message and all the help that you give people. Anytime you need me, you can hit me up on Instagram. You have my email and my number and all that.
Hey, I appreciate you, Matt. You have a good New Year's, brother.
All right. You too, brother.
All right.
Later.